Welcome, everyone, to the Media Row podcast. I'm Justin Miller. Ahead of the game of the week for the Missouri Valley, you have Drake going on the road with a 2-game losing streak, trying to get back into the win column, going up against the conference-leading, undefeated Bradley Braves. And no one better to talk to about this game than the legendary Dave Snell. Dave has been a part of the Missouri Valley for years, has been a legend with Bradley for over 40 years, and I met him my junior year when I was at Drake as just a student broadcaster. And Mike Mahan, who you'll hear his name quite a bit in this interview with Dave, he is the guy who does like stats, helps with stats with the TV broadcasters for all over the place, travels all over. Another legend and someone I could talk about forever too. But Mike tells me, you need to go introduce yourself to Dave. So I do, and Dave right away, kind as can be, gets gives me his card and tells me to text him, call him if I have any questions or need help with anything. And I have annoyed that man since. I have texted him constantly, asking him questions, advice, and he is just someone I look up to and is a great mentor and has great insight. And I can't wait to hear what he has to say on the Drake Bradley game. And let's just get right into it. I don't want to take any more of Dave's time. Here is an interview that I did with the Bradley play-by-play announcer, Dave Snell. So, Dave, I want to talk both about like your career and also the Bradley Drake game, which everybody's so eager to talk about and preview. But first off, how long have you been behind the mic?
Well, for Bradley, this has been 40, this is the 46th year.
Wow.
And it's been a long road, that's for sure, but I still enjoy every game, and I actually enjoy the preparation more than the actual game itself. It's like I teach a class here, and I tell the students that this is like a final exam. You work and prepare for every part of what could happen, and then the preparation. Your final exam is the game, and how you recall things that you have studied about both teams and how they should match up against each other. And so I enjoy it as much now as I did when it was the first game.
How did you get to Bradley? How did that all happen?
Well, I'm an alum, and I graduated in '76. I did 22 years of, actually, I started when I was 19 years old in television too. So I had that aspect of broadcasting, but it also allowed me in doing high school games when I was in high school and throughout my college. In addition to working at Bradley as a sports information director my senior year, I was doing high school basketball and all those things. And when I left Bradley, I went to Phoenix and worked for the Phoenix Suns for a season. I was, of which Al McCoy was a Drake
Yep, Drake
graduate,
alum.
and Al was he just passed, but he was one of my mentors really. At When he was with the Suns, I worked there a year and then came back and did more high school basketball. I did a morning radio show and did sports and those types of things. And then when the WMBD job opened, which was in the beginning of the '79-'80 season, because I had done basketball and the team that I was doing the games for were unbeaten going into the sectional championship. So they were really good. A lot of people listened. So I had my tapes just, ready and waiting, and they had heard them. And so I was hired like right away. And then I got to do Bradley basketball because the gentleman that left was Mick Hubert, who went to Dayton and then became the longtime announcer for the Florida Gators and worked 2 national championship games in both football and basketball before he retired. So I've been here ever since, and This is 40, I think it's, yeah, 46 years.
Wild. And like, how do you how do you keep going? I mean, this is a very difficult business to get into. I mean, I'm living it right now of kind of changes unexpectedly. How do you just kind of take the highs with gratitude as well as the lows?
Well, I think that first of all, you have to work as hard as you did when you started, even though the technology is a lot easier now, preparing for games. And actually, the way I prepare for a game, I got from a guy from Cornell. When Bradley was playing in a tournament at Michigan State, they were playing against Eastern Washington. They were supposed to win that game and then play the Spartans in the championship game, but they lost the first game, so they wound up playing Cornell. And I used to interview all the broadcasters uh, all the time on a pregame show. And I wound up talking to this guy, and I really liked his style that he used. So I picked it up, and I've used it ever since. It works. I talked to Chick Hearn when I was with the Phoenix Suns, and I asked him. He used to do Bradley basketball actually when they were number one in the nation. And I said, "What's the easiest way to what's your idea about preparing for a game?" He said, "There is no way. It's the one that works for you." And I passed that along. And there are thousands of different ways to do basketball or football or any sport, but it's the one that you're most comfortable with. And that networking, meeting as many people in this business as you can, picking their minds, and developing friendships with them, because that is a big part of this business is the people that you meet and that will help you, give you some tips. Mike Reese is one of my best friends. He just retired with Southern Illinois a couple of years ago. And we talk all the time about nuances of the game, what he does, what works for him, and just pick different people's minds. Because the best part of the business are the people that you meet and the young men or women that you work with uh, become lifelong friends.
I'm intrigued now though. What's the Cornell? What was his style of preparation that you love so much?
Well, let's see if I can show it to you.
Yeah, this would be awesome.
I always have pictures of the players. Now I know this is easier a little bit in the valley, but this is what I do with every game, because if I have not seen the player, I look in the pregame show. You can memorize names and numbers, but as far as the players are concerned, you have to watch warm-ups that night and how they look. How is their hair? Do they have facial will they have a mustache? Do they have a beard? What about their tattoos? And that you can tell the difference right away when the ball goes up. You know who they are and what they look like, because pictures sometimes lie, but for the most part, this is what works. So I put with all of these, I put names, numbers, and underneath where they're from, and now they're transfers, most of them.
Yeah, that's a difficult part of everything
Yeah,
now is where did this
and
guy come from?
yeah, points, rebounds, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throws, foul situation, assist to turnover ratio, blocks, and steals. I have that for everyone that plays, and so I can look at things. For example, Drake plays a lot of players, a few players, a lot of times. So Sturts has 38 minutes. Uh, Mascari has 36. Jackson 28. Abreu 34. So that means that they're playing a lot of minutes. It also means that they got to develop their bench a little bit more. I know Ferguson comes off the bench, not the best free thrower. Uh, Howard had a great game the other day against Murray, even though they lost. He plays very hard. And so you can put this together so you know who's not going to be in the game at the end of the game. Ferguson's probably not going to be on the floor. They'd foul him because he's not as good a free thrower. But so you look at those little parts of the game. When you and I watch a lot of video too. It's easy to do now with ESPN Plus. You
Oh
can
yeah.
watch everybody. And for example, I watched the game against Murray State. Murray doesn't shoot the ball very well, but boy, they sure did the other day. They hit all kinds of
Yeah.
threes, and Drake just had one of those games that they couldn't throw the ball in. They struggled from the field, and that's very unusual for them. Um, I'm really impressed by the way the Bulldogs play defensively. They play very hard. They know the system because the coaches got all kinds of guys from Northwest Missouri on the squad. We had that at Washington because they brought a coach over, and from Eastern Washington, it's his first year, and you can tell the guys that have played for these coaches that are transferring, like Sturts did
Hmm.
with Indiana State. He knew all those players and brought them all with him, and more that's happening, and that's what Coach has done. What Ben has done the with the Bulldogs and been very successful at it. So there are a lot of things that go into it, but I start working on games. In fact, I'm already starting to work on Northern uh, Chicago, UIC. That's Bradley's game on Saturday afternoon, and I always up to date the stats on a board before they play this game tonight. So I've got an idea then when I look at it how this game worked out statistically when I add all the stats in.
So tonight you'll be watching the
Oh yes,
UIC
I will. I'll
Missouri
be
State
watching
game.
it and taping it as I watch it again. You don't watch as much as the coaches do,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you watch enough that you can get an idea of what works for a team and what doesn't work for a team. Like Scoball,
Hmm.
he shoots the three. He shoots it very well for a big guy. They've got a guard that came over from Utah State that Bradley played the last 2 years. So I know about him. Um, so you just add all these things together, and it's the best part of the game. And then the game takes place.
So you've called over 1,400 games.
This is number 1,428.
You know the number.
Oh, yeah. I keep track of it because I keep these boards and then I file them. And that's a great thing about having a game done on a folder because I put the official stats in there and a book and I file it here. So next year, when Bradley plays Washington State here, I've got all the things from last year. So I've got some of them I gave away to students, but I've got most of the 1,428.
Do you have your very first one?
I have a copy of it. Yes,
That's
I played.
wild.
It was in Kentucky. It was in Anchorage, Alaska, and Bradley played Kentucky in the Great Alaskan Shootout. And I met one of the. You meet all kinds of people, and you never know. We were on a plane going from Seattle to Anchorage, which is a long flight. It's longer than the one from Chicago to Seattle. And getting on the plane was a coach that was the coach of the Iona Gales at that time. And we were going to have a movie, and Dick Versace knew that I could do impersonations. And so he says, David, get up and entertain and do some of your stick. So that was the time when The Godfather was a movie. And so I did that. And since he was Italian, man, I like to drink wine more than I used to. Anyway, I'm drinking more. And then I do Rocky Balboa, Rocky, the movie that was out about that time. And I do Jack Nicholson. I would do Jack. And all those
Those
things.
are good.
And sitting there, he says, two more Italians. They were both drinking wine, so they thought it was great. Um, his name was Jim Valvano.
Oh, wow.
And I wound up becoming very, very good friends with him. And we would write each other, and he sent me birthday cards. And when they beat Houston, I wrote him this long letter. He came to Peoria, did a Nike camp there, and I had him on television with me. And he said, I've always wanted to read the hog market report. So he went on and read the hog markets before he went on with me. And
That's unbelievable.
so and he passed, and it was so heartbreaking. So now I always give to the V Foundation.
Hmm.
I've got pictures of him in my home office and whatever. So you never can tell when you'll meet somebody in this business that will make such an impact on your life as Coach V did in mine at the beginning. So that was at Kentucky. They had Sam Bowie played on that team.
Oh, yep.
Uh, let's see who played on that team. There were a
So that
couple.
would have been like 83, right?
That
With
would have
Sam
been
Bowie?
79, 80. This
Oh,
would have been
okay.
1979.
He was
Uh,
drafted in 83 then, I
yeah.
think, with Jordan.
Did Paul Westphal play for that team? I was thinking it was some no, it wasn't Westfall. There was another NBA guy that was a guard on that team. But Sam Bowie was on that team. I
Yeah.
think he was a freshman in that year. And Sam Bowie, was drafted number 1 ahead of Michael Jordan.
Yep. Yep. Because
So
I remember I didn't know anything about him. And then NBA Network did like a 1984, 83 draft
yeah,
documentary. And they talked about him. I was like, how have I never heard about this guy? And then you hear about his story and all the issues
oh yeah,
with injuries he had. But man, in college, that dude was a stud.
yes he was. So in the second game, Bradley played Lamar, and I can't remember who the coach was. He later became a great coach, and his name is escaping me now. And then the third game, Bradley played against a team that beat Texas A&M, who Bradley wound up winning the tournament that year and went to their first NCAA tournament since 1957. And they played Texas A&M, and they lost on. They had the ball. Game was tied. It was inbounded, and one of the players turned the ball over, and they ran at the other end, and our guy blocked a shot and fouled him, and he made 2 free throws, so Bradley lost by 2. And that
It-
was in Denton, Texas, at North Texas University. So those were
so
the first 3 games.
that's incredible that you have a filing cabinet in your head of like all the moments, all the little details. But so I'm assuming the answer is yes, you still have this, but just goosebumps or like pinch me moments when you walk into arena. When was the last time you went into an arena to broadcast a game and you're like, holy cow, I get to do this for a job?
I'll tell you when it was. There are a lot of them, but one in particular, Bradley played at the University of Texas, El Paso, and that's Texas Western, Glory Road.
Yep. Yep.
One of the guards is still living, and he's a greeter of the media when you come in. So a member of that team, Glory Road, first team to start all black players in the NCAA championship game.
Hmm.
Great movie. And one of those players welcomed me when I came in because I said, "Could I have my picture taken with you?" I said, you're a historical figure." He said, "Sure, sure." So I had my picture taken with him. So that was one of them. Anytime you go into an NCAA tournament, that gives you goosebumps. Bradley played Michigan State and almost beat him the last time they were there. They should have gone the COVID year because they won the tournament. And 2 days after they won the tournament, they shut everything down. So that was kind of disappointing, but those things, that's life sometimes. Every time I go into a game, I'm always jacked. Like tomorrow night's game, there's going to be a lot of people at Carver Arena. I mean, they've been drawing very well, a little over 6 every game, and I think there's going to be even more there tomorrow night. So,
Yeah, let's jump into tomorrow night because that is the game of the week. There's a lot of good games in the Valley tomorrow. I mean, you and I, Murray State, I think will be good. Indiana State Valpo is really intriguing to me, but man, everybody's locked eyes on Drake and Bradley. Um, have you seen this rivalry over the past few seasons just taken to a different level
yeah,
between
because
these two teams?
first of all, this is the 167th game between the two. They seem to play every year in the Valley tournament, sometime, but most of the time it was on the lower end of the spectrum for both teams for a lot of years. So we play in the 8-9 game, uh, those
Yeah,
types of games.
the Thursday games at
Yeah, the
times. Yep.
Thursday game, the Thursday night special. Uh, and those were very competitive as well. Somebody came in to me and said, "What were this afternoon?" One of the people from the office says, "What were some of the best games that you remember?" Well, certainly the one a couple of years ago when Bradley won the championship, and we had 11,000 people in the arena, and that was when Drake had, the great team, DeVries, and he was younger, and they had Brody, and they're great players. That was a great game, but I said there was one. Dick Versace had us put on probation when he left after Bradley went 32-3. This was when Jim Les was a senior and Hersey Hawkins was a sophomore. And then the next year, Bradley was ineligible to play in the postseason. So the only thing that was worth playing for was a regular season championship. And they had a chance to tie, but they let a lead get away late, and it was tied. And Drake inbounded the ball and threw a perfect pass to a guy named Michael Morgan right at the square, and he got it and laid it up and in. Bradley lost the game, and they lost their chance to be co-champions, and because of that shot. So that was a memorable shot. And I'm trying to think of another one that they played in the tournament all the time. The game that Hersey threw, Jim Les threw Hersey Hawkins a pass with 1 second to go, and he got it in midair and turned and made it and won the game, which was a year that they won 22 games in a row and won every game in the league. They were 32-3 and lost in the second round of the NCAA to the eventual champions, the Louisville Cardinals. That was in that year, but just before that game at the old gym downtown. What do they call that? Well, I'm my memory is going. But anyway, the night before, Ozzy Osbourne performed at the arena, and that was the night that he bit the head off a bat.
Yeah.
That was the night before that game. Then there was another time that Evander Holyfield's nephew was making his pro debut in Des Moines. So Bradley played the same night as the boxing match. So we saw Holyfield get into a limousine, was the biggest limousine I'd ever seen. And he had 5 women in there with him. So it was a big night for Evander. So
Veterans Memorial. That's the name of it.
That's right.
It was in there. I couldn't think of it there for a second.
I'll never. Another time, New Kids on the Block. They were really big. They were staying in the Marriott downtown, and every time I would go down to the lobby, every button had been pushed to stop, so they might see the New Kids on the Block get off the elevator.
Did you ever see them?
No, I didn't, but I'm sure the girls did. Because they were camped out. And another thing, we would always seem to go there during the the caucuses, the Iowa caucuses on every 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we would all be there, and CNN would be over here and Fox would be over here, and all it was whole lit up there because it was downtown, and that was the place to be. So I got a
I
lot of Des
love
Moines
it.
stories. Mike Mahon's one of my best friends.
I
You know
have a
Mike?
Mike. I have a Mike question down here for you because Mike's been a huge mentor when I was a student and then now outside trying to get into this business. He's been great help and he has a question that he wanted me to end the interview with for
Okay.
you. So I got that
Okay.
locked and loaded for you. But with Drake and Bradley, we're seeing Drake. They've stubbed their toe these last two games against UIC, Murray State. As someone covering Drake, it seems like they're kind of struggling with the physicality of teams. They're starting to match Drake's physicality. Bradley has Hannah, they have Thomas, bigger guys. Do you see Bradley kind of utilizing those guys in an old school fashion of just get the ball down to them in the post and bully Drake in the paint?
Well, they got to have great ball movement because Drake's defense is very good. And I don't think it's going to be bully ball like we saw the other night with Missouri State. I mean that's bully ball. They
Yeah.
have no
Yeah,
size at
that's
all. But boy, their big man is their postman is 6'4", 280. So a big lad. The issue I think with Drake that they've got to work out, and I think they're probably going to, are the minutes that they're giving these guys, and they've got to develop more players. And Howard was so good the other day that's a big player. Banks has got to come on. They've got to use more players because they're going to kill these guys with these minutes that they're playing. So I think that's one of the things to look at. But both of them are going to play at a very high level. To me, the team that wins tomorrow night will be the one that gets the most points out of turnovers because they're very good defensive teams. Bradley has obviously they're running the ball up and down the floor against people that they can do that with. I don't think they want to do that tomorrow night. First of all, I don't think that Drake probably is going to let them do that because they're very, very patient offensively. They run a lot of sets. They screen more than any team that I've seen this year. Um, so those the other two games, you can lose games in the Valley. Bradley went double overtime with Valpo. They went overtime at they were 7 down with 1:48 to go in an overtime and won the game. So when you have 10 seniors on your team, there's something about we never stop playing.
Yeah.
So but those are two games Bradley could have lost. So there's nothing wrong with losing games if you play well. Sometimes another team is better on any given night, like Murray was the other day. Murray just kept hitting big shot after big shot when it was in crunch time.
Yeah, it was only the third time all season Murray State had shot over 50% from the field.
There you go.
So,
So that can help happen on any night. And because Valparaiso played that double overtime game, that told them we can play with anybody. And they're going to be tough to beat towards the end of the year because they're very well coached. They've got a postman that scores inside and outside, and now they've got some shooters to go with it, and it's between the ears. If a team believes that they can play with anybody, they will. So tomorrow night, it's what makes the game great because you have two teams that are very solid, and I don't know what's going to happen, and that's the best part of it.
Coach McCollum always talks about death by 1,000 cuts. Like he is going to slow the game down with the defense and offense and use the defense as a strength. Has Bradley seen a defense like Drake's in terms of the way they're so physical, they're in your face so far this year? And if so, how have they handled that kind of pressure from opponents' defenses?
We just saw one, Missouri State. That's the way they play. They can't run up and down with people because they don't have the athletes that do that. So what they do is slow things down, and they pound the ball inside. And that was a close game for the longest time. Bradley won 69-60, but that was a very close game until the last 5 minutes. And I think because they didn't go that deep, those big guys were a little bit gassed. And Bradley is a very deep team. They're like 10, 12 deep, and they're all veterans. So I think that's advantage that they have. They can win different ways. They're going to have another one against UIC because they want to take care of the ball as well, and they've got a little bit more talent than they have before. So it's a gauntlet. It's a gauntlet in the league, and now you've got two of the best teams probably, and I'm guessing that Northern Iowa is going to start coming on as well. And I think those are probably the three best teams. But you have an off night, you'll get beat.
And with Bradley, or with Drake, I mean, we talked about how kind of what has led to these last two losses where it feels like, man, they're screening a lot, but not a lot of like movement with purpose is kind of how I've been watching it. I mean, growing up watching those Ray Giacoletti years, they screened a lot, but they didn't get movement towards the basket. In these last two games, I think Drake has fallen into that. And then you talk about how they're not deep on the bench. Is there anything that Bradley is doing that maybe Drake can take advantage of? Is there anything on Bradley's side that concerns you going into Wednesday night?
Well, they can't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
They've got to take care of the ball. I think that's the biggest things because when they have not played well, that's been an issue. The turnovers. I think they're going to be okay on the boards, but they can't lose sight of 22 because he's a dead eye shooter, and I think Sturts is going to get his points. I mean that he's got that he's got that mentality that he knows how to score. He knows how to get people to score because of his ability to assist. And they've just traded DeVries for Sturts.
Honestly, yeah. Or
The
you
same,
could even say
different
Sturts
type
for
of
Sturts.
player, obviously, but the guy can handle the ball. DeVries could handle the ball, but he could bring it up the court. He didn't need to because the guards were so good. But it's spelled differently, right? But we always seem to have a Sturts around
Yeah.
on Drake. But I think Bradley's depth will be a factor in the game because they've got three post people that they can bring in, and that's usually an advantage for them. And obviously, they have Duke Dean and Montgomery, who have been very, very good. Zeke Montgomery has played 2 games in Terre Haute, and he's got career highs in both of them. He had 18 points, of which 14 were scored in the last 5 minutes of a game that they won, the year that they won the championship. And then the other night, he scored 28. They couldn't stop him. So will they play that way? The other thing, the advantage that Bradley has is you never know who is going to be the guy that does it. When they played at Myrtle Beach and they were in the championship game against Middle Tennessee, the tournament director came up and he said, "Who do you think should be the most valuable player if Bradley wins tonight?" And I said, "Put their names up on the board and throw a dart because they all can be. Every one of them, like Darius Hannah the other night, he had I think he had 20, 21, 19, something like that. I think he had 21 points the other night. And Duke Dean had 5. So it's always somebody. And I think that's the advantage that they have. But the team that wins will have less turnovers and score more points off turnovers.
Has that been a big issue for Bradley? Is
When
turning
they
over the
haven't played
ball, or
well, they've lost two games. Both teams had size. They had huge inside players, and they were from uh, Washington State, which had a team just like with the players brought over, and they played Santa Clara in Vegas, and their size was really big. So we don't have that situation in the Valley very much at all with
yeah,
that kind of size. Um, those are the kind of guys that you wind up running into in the first and second rounds of the NCAA tournament. And we do have some people with size, but we don't have the 6'9", 225, 230 guy in the post.
yeah.
So that makes a difference.
I'm excited for the backcourt matchup between Dean and Sturts, though. I think that's going to be really fun to watch. Duke Dean, outside those 5 points against Missouri State, he's been very consistent.
Yeah, he has. He's getting two guys at a time in the non-conference. They just had two guys guard him all the time, and Indiana State probably did that for a little bit, but they didn't get him on the last one because he got the ball from a wing all the way to the baseline, went around the baseline and curled and laid the ball in with 4 seconds to go to win that game by a point. It was pretty incredible. So you'll have two excellent point guards tomorrow night, different players. There are a lot of very good point guards in this league. There really are. And when you get a chance to see some of them, Des White the other night had, I think, 3 points. So if you can stop the point guard or at least slow him down, you've got a chance. But many of these teams have good ones. Teal with Indiana State is very good. You can just look at the statistics in the league, and you'll find point guards everywhere.
Yeah, I
Really.
mean, Murray State has three that they put in the starting lineup that play
Oh, we
really
have
well.
Jamar Wood.
Yep.
He was really good the other night. He's been struggling a little bit, but everybody's got a good one. And the only team that really struggles is Southern Illinois. They have trouble scoring, and but everybody else, Illinois State, they have Banks that they picked up from Southern Illinois, and uh, the two guard is really good, and they have Poindexter, so they're gonna. That's a big rivalry here,
Oh yeah.
like it is for
Oh
Northern Iowa with the Bulldogs. So.
yeah.
But there's a nice little rivalry between Bradley and Drake because they've played so many times. Bradley's played Drake more than any other team ever.
Oh really? Didn't know that.
Schools are really alike, private schools, same number of students. Um, so they have a lot alike in many aspects away from the sporting world academically. Um, Drake is a terrific school. Uh, Bradley is as well. So there are a lot of common denominators there.
Well, and like it just feels these past few seasons, every time these two teams meet on the floor, it's a meaningful game. Whether it's in early January or early March, it's a meaningful game.
I would not be surprised if Sunday afternoon had these two teams
Yeah,
in
I
St. Louis.
mean, they're
And I
very
think and I
talented.
think that the league would like that because that's a tune-in game.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And the Braves have lost, I think, four in a row. The last game they won, I think, was in St. Louis um, a few years ago. But Drake has won four in a row, and that's DeVries. He loved coming to Carver Arena.
Well, because see, the last time I remember them going to, because last year with the job I had at iHeart, I was covering Iowa State, so I didn't get to watch the Missouri Valley as much as I wanted to. So the last time I remember Drake being at Bradley was for that regular season title. Whoever won that was going to win it in 2023, and Bradley beat Drake in that one. So I remember that game.
And then a
And
week later,
yeah, then a week later they met up
they
again.
were mad. They were upset about that game in Peoria. That
That
was not close.
no, and that was my I was calling that game for the Drake student broadcast. And
Were you great?
yeah, that was a fun
We
one
had a
for a
good
Drake
time.
fan. Yes, for a Drake fan that was fun. But I mean, I remember my earliest memory of Drake Bradley is Bradley beating Drake in 2008. They were the first team to beat Drake at the Knapp Center that season because Drake at that time was
Was that
undefeated.
Emmenecker?
Yep, that was Emmenecker, Josh Young, Jonathan Cox, Corver.
Emmenecker made the shot here in Peoria to win the game.
Really?
Yeah, that year. I mean, the ball came loose. He picked it up. I think he shot it and got his own rebound and put it back in. Have to ask him. He'll remember.
Okay, I will.
He'll remember that game.
I'll ask him. Their next home game is Saturday, so I'll ask him on Saturday.
Well, you tell him hello and tell him that I think that he is a terrific analyst.
I will. I will. I'm sure he'll love that. Well, I won't keep you too much longer because I got Mike's question here.
This is fun.
I know. Thank you again so much for doing this for me.
Oh, I love talking to people and about this business. It's great. I think you've got a great start on a terrific career.
Well, thank you. That means the world hearing that. And you've been great. Mike has been great. Everyone at Drake, everyone in the Valley. It's cool to be after covering Iowa State at the Big 12. Yeah, it was cool. It was a big tournament, but there is something like a close knit group in the Valley,
like
which I really love.
Yep. And now most of them have retired, and I haven't got there yet. So, but what's Mike got for me?
Mike has, because he takes you out to restaurants every time you're here in Des Moines. What's your favorite restaurant he's taking you to?
I think Jethro's. I like Jethro's going there, and we talk about it all the time. And where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? I said, Mike, this is your hometown. You know, love the Drake Diner.
Yeah, Drake Diner. I used to go there with my grandparents all the time as a kid. Love it.
I think probably that Chad Klein, who I work with, he was a player with Anthony Parker on the championship team back in the 80s. No, 90s, 90, 96, 95, 96. We always go to the Drake Diner at least once. But when I go with Mike, it's usually to Jethro's.
What do you get?
Different things. It's got to be some sort of barbecue. I'm not going to get the Emmenecker sandwich because I'm not that hungry all the time. Mike and I, they take your bill and they put it on this little clip thing, and we both forgot our credit cards there.
Oh no!
So we both had to go back and get our credit cards. Usually one guy will miss it, but now that night we both missed it. So I would have to tell Mike Jethro's. He always comes to Peoria and has Avanti's, and tell him now that they serve Avanti's at Carver Arena.
Avanti's. That sounds Italian. Is it Italian food?
It's Italian. Italian, and I get a grilled ham and cheese and a drink, and it costs $16. All they need is a ski mask and a gun. So
that's a
so
damn
tell
good
Mike
impression.
that Avanti's is serving at Carver Arena now.
If I text him right now, he may show up Wednesday night. He may be traveling down then if he likes it that much.
He's going to the. He told me that he would miss the game because he's at Northern Iowa doing a.
Yeah, but if you tell him there's Avanti's there, he may show up.
That's true. Mike is one of my very, very favorite people, best friends. He's got all kinds of stories. He's like they used to have a guy on the Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons called Mr. Know-It-All. Mike knows everything. And he's such a great guy. I said, I've never seen the ballpark where the Cubs play their AAA games. Well, I'll drive you out there.
Oh, Principal Park. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I have to
was.
come out for
Now,
a
it
game.
was at night. We couldn't see much, but at least I got to see the ballpark. And Larry Morgan,
Oh,
I
yeah.
talk to Larry all the time, and um, Larry Kotler was a good friend.
Yep.
And in fact, Dick Ludke from Illinois State and I drove over to the funeral. Um, and then the next year, I had to go to one of my best friends was Tony Baroni, who was assistant coach here at Bradley and coached at Creighton, and then later was with the Memphis Grizzlies. He was one of my very, very best friends, and he passed away. So I went to his funeral and then went to the to Des Moines, and Larry Kotler was having it was 1 year from the day that he had his accident, and you put rocks on the grave,
Hmm.
kind of is their tradition. So I did that as well. But so there are people in Des Moines that I just love and can't wait to see. And just tell Mike that Avantes is now serving at Carver Arena, but he'll have to bring an Andrew Jackson probably to get one.
Okay. I will tell him that. And next time, I can't remember the exact date or Bradley comes into town,
It's February
but
8th, I think.
February 8th?
Let me check my notes here.
Man, that's a tough week for Drake. They play you and I that
16th.
week too. Oh, okay.
16th toward
Okay.
the end of the year.
Okay. When you come out, I'll try to hitch a ride with you guys to go out to eat with you guys because
That's
this has
terrific.
been
That'd be
great.
great.
And
Won't believe the stories.
well, so like my plan is, during the summer when the Valley is slowed down, basketball, football wise, my plan is to have broadcasters on, writers, SIDs, and just have them tell their stories. So I'll probably annoy you again to hear more Jimmy V stories. All those were amazing. So I want to hear more.
Justin, thank you. I think your career is just starting to where it's going to butt up and be whatever you want to be.
Well, that means the world. It seriously, seriously does. So thank you. Again, a huge thank you to Dave Snell. Like I said in that interview, really excited for in the summer. We'll talk baseball, of course, and we'll talk big sports stories. But I really want this to be an opportunity for the broadcasters that tell you the story of what's happening on the court, on the field, on the rink. I want them an opportunity to tell their story. And as just someone who's nerded out of broadcasters since I was 8, I'm genuinely interested in hearing all the stories. Dave Snell name dropping Jimmy Valvano on me. I could have put down 20 more questions, but we had to get to the Drake stuff, and I wanted to make sure to not just take his time for the entire night. So a huge thank you to Dave. We'll definitely have him back on the show here soon, and definitely in the summer to have him tell his story as well. So really excited about tonight's game. Make sure you follow Media Row Pod on Twitter and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff on TikTok at Justin Miller on Air. Follow me on Twitter at Justin_C Miller for updates on tonight's game, because I will be locked in on all Missouri Valley games, but especially Drake and Bradley. So have a good one. See you guys again tomorrow at 2.